In the small, rain-soaked town of Hawkins, Indiana, where the extraordinary and the terrifying regularly punctured the quiet fabric of everyday life, one of the most profound and quietly heroic stories was not about monsters from other dimensions, but about a family quietly crumbling in the wake of a very human loss. This is the story of Jonathan Byers, a teenage boy who, long before his brother Will vanished into the upside down, had already disappeared into a role he never asked for. That of a parent. To understand Jonathan is to look past the camera in his hands, past his quiet demeanor and taste for music that feels like a private world, and to see the scaffolding holding up a broken home. With a father who was either absent or abusive, and a mother, Joyce, whose immense love was increasingly tangled with strains of financial worry and a nervous energy that the town mistook for instability, Jonathan's childhood ended prematurely. He became what psychologists call a parentified child. A young person forced to assume adult responsibilities and emotional burdens far beyond their years. In the Byers household, Jonathan wasn't just Will's older brother, he became his surrogate parent, his anchor, and his primary source of stability, a role he carried with a heartbreaking, solemn dedication. This parentification wasn't about dramatic, single moments of heroism, but about the slow, steady accumulation of 1,000 small sacrifices. It was in the silent routine of making breakfast because his mother had to leave early for her punishing retail job. It was in knowing exactly how Will liked his Egos, in mending the tear in his backpack for the third time, in being the one to check for monsters under the bed not as a playful game, but as a genuine nightly ritual to soothe a brother's very real fears. While other boys his age were thinking about dates and cars and parties, Jonathan's mind was a running checklist of domestic logistics. Was there enough food for lunches? Did Will have a clean shirt for picture day? Were the bills piling up on the counter? His love was practical, manifested in actions rather than words. He observed the world through the lens of his camera, but his true focus was always on his family. He saw the weariness in his mother's eyes, the way her hands sometimes shook with anxiety. And he saw the vulnerability in Will, a sweet, artistic boy who felt like an outcast in a town that valued conformity and sports. Jonathan became the buffer between Will and a world that didn't understand him, and between Will and the full, frightening weight of their mother's struggles. He shielded his brother, taking on the emotional labor so Will could, for a little while longer, just be a kid. When Will vanished, this surrogate parent role didn't just intensify, it became Jonathan's entire reason for being. In the midst of the town's search, the police's growing suspicion, and Joyce's spiraling conviction that Will was communicating through the lights, Jonathan was the tortured bridge between belief and despair. He wanted desperately to trust his mother's frantic instincts, but his years of being the responsible one, the grounded one, clashed with her seemingly delusional claims. His agonizing "why can't you just be normal?" plea to Joyce was not a critique of her love, but the scream of a child forced into adulthood who sees the last pillar of stability, his mother, seemingly collapsing. Yet, even in his doubt, his primary drive remained unwavering: find Will. He didn't join the hunt as a hopeful brother, he shouldered it as a duty, the ultimate responsibility of the protector who had, in his mind, failed. His journey through the woods with Nancy, armed with his camera and a determination born of guilt and love, was a parent's nightmare quest. He wasn't looking for a lost child, he was searching for his child. This dynamic crystallizes in the visceral, haunting moment in Season 2, after Will's rescue but while he remains possessed by the Mind Flayer. As Joyce and Hopper are desperately trying to burn the entity out of Will in the superheated shed, it is Jonathan who is on the other side of the door. His body pressed against it, his voice breaking as he talks Will through his happiest memories. He doesn't yell instructions or science, he uses the intimate knowledge of a primary caregiver, recounting a specific, precious day at the beach, guiding his brother home with a soft, personal map of their shared life. In that moment, he is not a sidekick or a boyfriend, he is a parent calling his child back from the darkness. Jonathan's entire identity and his struggles throughout the series are inextricably linked to this forced maturity. His social isolation at school wasn't just due to being weird or poor, it was because he lived in a different universe of concerns than his peers. While Steve Harrington's world revolved around social hierarchies and romance, Jonathan's world was a tight orbit of family survival. His relationship with Nancy blossomed not from shared popularity, but from a shared intensity and a recognition of someone else who cared deeply beyond the superficial. Yet, even this relationship was shadowed by his role. His fierce loyalty and protective nature were strengths, but they came packaged with a self-sacrificing tendency and a weight of responsibility that made it hard for him to prioritize his own happiness. His later storyline involving college applications and the fear of leaving his family highlights the painful bind of the parentified child. The dream of going to New York, of a life of his own, is suffocated by the overwhelming, ingrained sense of duty. He feels he is the glue, and to leave is to risk the fragile structure falling apart. His experimentation with drugs and alcohol in later seasons is a flawed, human attempt to numb the constant pressure, to find a release valve for the anxiety of a responsibility he's carried since he was a boy. In the end, Jonathan Byers' arc is one of the most realistic and quietly powerful narratives in Stranger Things. He is a hero not because he wielded a weapon against a Demogorgon, but because he wielded unwavering devotion against the slow, everyday chaos of a struggling family. He represents the countless unseen children who grow up too fast, who trade their adolescence for the well-being of those they love. His superpower was not telekinesis or super strength, it was resilience. It was the ability to keep putting one foot in front of the other, to make the sandwich, to take the photo, to hold the line. When the Byers family finally leaves Hawkins at the end of Season 4, it is a bittersweet release for Jonathan. He is, at last, physically removed from the supernatural epicenter of trauma. But the psychological role, the identity of the caregiver, is not so easily left behind. It has shaped the very core of who he is, a young man whose love is deep, patient, and profoundly selfless. Jonathan Byers' story reminds us that sometimes the most epic battles are not fought in parallel dimensions, but in the dim light of a kitchen at dawn, in the gentle reassurance offered to a scared sibling, and in the silent, steadfast decision of a child to become a parent long before his time.